And I would tell my friends, about my latest miracle. And they would say things like, oh, this only happens to you. These things only happen to you, which I found somewhat annoying because I'm not special. I'm not a guru or a saint or anything.
Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspired podcast. Welcome back to a new episode. Kind reminder that you can visit us on spiritualinspired.ca, YouTube, and Gnostic TV. My guest today is Sophia Demas. Sophia, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Let's share some extraordinary events that happen in your life and could inspire others, shall we?
Okay.
You spent part of your childhood in Greece and then you moved back to the United States. How did these diverse cultural experiences influence your perspective on miracles and coincidences?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was the move. The move was, it wasn't the move that was the inspiration. But no, what happened was when I was 19 years old, I was going through this sort of existential angst over these two issues, like every 19-year-old, I guess. And I felt that these two issues were unsolvable. Okay, just I couldn't come to, uh, you know, really finding anything that would change these two issues. And what happened within 2 months, it was because of a dream and meeting this man that the two issues went poof and disappeared. And I was transformed. I believe that is when I entered womanhood, and I was just transformed. And those, whatever it was that was bothering me, has not revisited my life since. So it wasn't lost on me. Like, how can this possibly be? How was it that I had this incredible dream, and this person who just he interpreted the dream so beautifully, and I was transformed. And so I thought, okay, there's something bigger that's going on here, and not that, oh, now this is a miracle or anything, but just there's something that's bigger. And even though I was raised in the Greek Orthodox religion by a very religious mother, um, it wasn't like like when she would say, "Oh, faith," you have to have faith, and I thought, oh, what is that? What is that? I mean, I know you're supposed to believe, but it was like all sort of mixed up, and so what happened was that I began paying attention to these sort of like coincidences that started to happen, or maybe they were happening all along, but I started to pay attention. And I would tell my friends, about my latest miracle, and they would say things like, "Oh, this only happens to you. These things only happen to you," which I found somewhat annoying because I'm not special. I'm not a guru or a saint or anything. And so basically, it started out where, and I'm a very strong-willed person, okay? And I had decided that I was not getting married. The idea was unsavory to me. I did not want children. I wanted to focus on my careers. And the last thing that I would even think of doing was writing a book. So, thank God, I kept my mind just a little bitty open because I was successfully single until I was 45. In 2011, one of my mentors, Father Stephen, who I think is the closest thing to Jesus Christ. He's not only a priest, but he's opened up all the covenant centers here, which are homeless shelters for teens. And anyway, long story short, he introduced me to this young girl from Turkey who found herself at this shelter. So she was 18, and we adopted her. And Mother's Day like became my favorite holiday, you know. And so there you go. I'm now married and I have a child, and now she's having this wonderful life. And then in 2011, I reconnected with a childhood friend, and I told her my latest miracle, and she said, "Oh, these things only happen to you." But something clicked. Something clicked. And I thought, okay, you know, everybody has a miracle story or a coincidence story, but the number of them, I mean, these so-called miracles, which I define as getting exactly what you needed just at the right time, they guided my life. And I can tell you that I feel supreme happiness. So I really thought about it, like, and what I did, I was curious. So I listed all my miracles. And what I discovered was preceding each miracle, there was at least one coincidence. Because sometimes I wouldn't listen, you know, I wouldn't. And in every case, I took action. I took action, and then the miracle happened. I mean, there's coincidences and then there's meaningful coincidences. These are meaningful coincidences that are really hard to believe, you know? So I decided once I made that discovery that it was, so basically my philosophy, if I could put it into like one capsule, it's that there's a divine intelligence that knows better than us what is best for us and communicates with us. So, and communicates with us in very clever ways via dreams or meeting a stranger that just says the exact thing you needed to hear, or puts coincidences in your path. And if you take action, what happens is you co-create the miracle with the divine. So now I've written two books. You know, and as a result of these things that I could have very easily just been stubborn into my free will, I am experiencing sublime happiness. So if I could wish something to all your audiences, I wish them sublime happiness.
Yes, see, so you answer a question which I supposed to ask you at the end of this discussion, but going back to everything you just said, you in fact applied in your life a basic advice and a basic approach, paying attention and taking action. And this item of discussion item comes very often in my interaction with previous guests, because even those that go to or attend a sacred plant ceremony and they have an amazing, elated experience, they're supposed to integrate it. And integration comes through pretty much taking action. And not all of them will do that. But in your case, you paid attention, first of all, and secondly, you took action. And for those friends who kept saying that this happens only to you, it's a sign that they don't pay attention.
Yeah, I can see that, and and also it's really interesting now because well, the first book, The Divine Language of Coincidence, is basically a memoir. So pretty much all the events are chronological, except for two chapters. One is titled please, which is about prayer, because the universe, this divine intelligence communicates through the things I mentioned, but then we communicate by prayer and gratitude. So one is entitled please on prayer, and the other one is entitled thank you on gratitude, which I believe is the highest form of prayer. So it doesn't have to be formal. You could just be walking down the street and just formulate your desire. And it was interesting. I was asked by another podcaster who said, why do you think so many events happen to you? And I thought about it, and I credit my mother, because as a very religious person, she prayed in the morning out loud and in the evening, and never pushed it on me. But what she would say to me, since I was a toddler, so in Greek, every Greek word can be made into the diminutive. So you've got a glass, and then you can make it into a little glass. Okay, so, and names are also made into the diminutive. So she would say to me, if you want something, you can just ask little Jesus. Just ask little Jesus for whatever you want. And if you find that you're scared, sometimes you get scared at night, just ask for protection from the little Virgin Mary. So what she did, what I realized now, that what she did is, so these entities were, they weren't like, yeah, you worship them, but she presented it like they're your friends. So you can ask them. So I think that from being so little, communicating with unseen beings seems perfectly natural to me.
Yes, and in
So
fact, yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, no. So when I wrote the book, I didn't know how to organize it at first, and it turned out to be way too long for to cram all these events. So what I did is I plucked out all the ones that had to do with death, and that's consciousness beyond death. About 7 out of the 10 chapters are my experiences with these communications, and 3 are close friends. And I can't choose which one is the strangest. But what's so exciting to me is that, I knew that scientists studied consciousness, but I had no clue that they studied coincidence. So there's these scientists, there's a group, you should look up. It's a group called the Scientific and Medical Network. And it's a group of highly esteemed scientists that study the paranormal. Well, they invited me to join their group as the only non-scientist, non-academic. And they're very interested in the book, okay? And they invited me to help plan and participate in the Synchronicity Summit. And it was so well received, they actually published a book called The Playful Universe, and my essays in the book. So, but what I found interesting is that although they were really interested in the first book, they had no interest in the second book. And finally, I understood why, okay? Because I don't know if have you heard of Dr. Eben Alexander?
No.
Okay, he wrote this book, Proof of Heaven, okay? And he's a neurosurgeon. So he reads my book and tells me he just absolutely loved the book. So when he found out that I had written a second book, he said, send me the manuscript so I can endorse it. I said, okay. Oh, he got interested. Well, he writes me back and he says, I'm sorry, I cannot endorse your book because there's not sufficient discussion of consciousness. Now, excuse me, but that is BS, because the foreword, the whole foreword, written by Dr. Deborah Green, is all about consciousness. But that was code. And he made me understand that, well, I'm a neurosurgeon. I can nearly die, go to heaven, come back, and write my book because it's an NDE, near death experience. But I can't touch your book with a 10-foot pole. Well, lucky for me, just before publication, a new field of study cropped up, ADC, after death communication. So now they're all interested in my book.
Interesting, very, very nice. And going back to what your mother did to you when you were young, in fact, I read that statement on your website. I wanted to ask you how that friendship with little Jesus and little Mary evolved over the years. If you had a much more tangible interaction with them.
Well, all I can say is that, first of all, I had no problem asking, okay, just asking and just saying thank you. I say thank you all day long. I go around just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's, I guess what has changed is my faith. So I've had events happen where I ask and it's almost spontaneous, or 3 months down the road. But what's happened with my faith is, okay, so I have sort of mapped out a spiritual journey in 3 levels, okay? So the first level, I think a lot of people are in the first level, where they operate from the perspective of wishful thinking. Okay, I'm wishing for something, a coincidence happens, and you go, oh, wow, that's a coincidence, and continue wishing. And another coincidence happens, continue wishing, no action, a dream, oh, wow, just keep wishing. So that's where you're gonna be left, wishing, you know. The next level is from the perspective of hope. So now you get it. Okay, coincidence happens. Now you're going to take action. And the taking action, it's not, oh, should I or shouldn't I? When it's so much bigger than you, you just do it, you know. You take action and then hope that you will get the miracle. But once you get to the position of faith, it's like, if you don't get what you want, it's okay. Like, there's no worries. I cannot tell you how many times I've said, God, why are you doing this to me? And then thanking God for that obstacle in relationships, in jobs. I just can't tell you. So what happens is you shed stress and you just go with the flow. It's like, you bring the ingredients to the table and let God do the cooking.
Yes. And it's something interesting because you mentioned church, you mentioned faith, and you are married with the Orthodox priest, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry,
And
no. Father Stephen is a mentor, one of my mentors.
Mentor. Okay, sorry about that. But you are very close through your mother also, and your maybe close family. You are close to the church, and from the church perspective, only those who are already in their ranks, like priests and bishops, can or are allowed to have this type of experiences, which will be categorized or labeled as miracles.
Okay, saints, the saints.
Exactly.
Actually, it's not the priests and the bishops. No, you only get the stories of miracles of the saints.
And how do they see those which are still part of the congregation and they are close to you? How do they see and perceive what's going on with you and what's been happening all your life, because sometimes they don't want to accept this type of experiences, and they don't want to accept near-death experiences. They are kind of taboo for the from the church perspective.
I have not run into that problem. I have not run into that problem. So it's especially people that know me, they have lived through these miracles with me, and it's all they all show amazement, but I think I show more amazement. I just can't believe every time something happens like that. I just can't believe it. I'm just so grateful, for so many things. So yeah, because I know that the Catholic Church, I think if you can prove that you've had, I think, 3 miracles, they make you a saint. But no one's approached me to for that.
Maybe the
So
application form doesn't work for you. I don't know.
I'm sorry, what?
I said maybe the application form doesn't work for you.
Yeah. So no, I'm just just, and the thing is that there's proof. Okay, there's proof that these things are happening. So so that's when I decided to write the book. Is I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that I'm not special, and that these things are accessible to everyone. It just, that's the way it goes.
Yes, we have to be open to the miracle, and it will happen to us for sure. And you have a very inquisitive mind, and I can relate to that. I studied various teachings, and you studied the Toltecs and the Taoism or the Buddhism. And I'm more interested to ask you about the Toltecs. And again, this is pretty much a blasphemy if you mention it to the church goers and the priests. How did the Toltec teachings influence your view of the world?
Well, there's a book that I recommend to every human, and it's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes.
And I had the privilege to go with him and a group of people to Teotihuacan, Mexico, and go to the pyramids. And it's a very spiritual place. And I believe that the Four Agreements, if everyone did the Four Agreements, practiced them, every therapist would be out of business. That's how I feel. So that's how that came in. But it's interesting because when I did my book proposal, there's part of it is a marketing plan, and I was supposed to specify my target market, but then also who is not my target market. So I put the evangelicals and the atheists, okay? Because the evangelicals, I mean, they're going to think I'm blasphemous, because what I actually wrote in the book was that if there's some Aborigines in Australia that has never seen, Western civilization of any kind, has no idea who Jesus is, if that person lays down his life for a fellow human being, he is a true Christian. And so I think that I would have some backlash, if somebody read that. So, and I truly believe that. It's because Jesus never said, worship me. He just said, here's what I do as an example. And so do what I do. So he said it himself. He didn't say, build me grand churches, So I just feel that I just feel fortunate that I know of his teachings, So anyway, so what I did is I don't know any evangelicals, but I do know a slew of atheists. So when I got my advanced reader copies of the first book, I gave to 10 atheists my book to read, and then they had to fill out a questionnaire. And I was astonished. Okay, all 10 atheists loved the book. All 10 said that they would give the book to another atheist. And they believed that all these miracles happened to me. However, all of them, in so many words, said the essence of what they said was these are not miracles. These events are manifestations of your all powerful mind. These external events are manifestations of your all powerful mind. And you cleverly seized on the opportunity. Well, that's taking action. They realize that. And it is your achievement, and you have no business crediting God. Well, I think that's stranger. I think that my mind is that powerful that I can manifest an external event than having it put there by this grand intelligence.
Yes, a very interesting test. And I think your nickname should be the atheist punisher, through this test you did.
So, but atheists like my book. So that's, and yet though, it does surprise me that there have been people that said this book opened my mind. There have been people who have said that, but then there's people who they have read both books, and then so I asked them, so how do you perceive that the brain was formulated? Has it been formulated to produce consciousness, or has it been formulated to click into consciousness, which is everywhere? The atheists all say, no, it's the brain that creates the consciousness. Well, how can these things happen? How can these communications happen, meaningful communications, if there's no consciousness, if it's all in your head? I don't understand, but and I will tell you that neither book was written to convince. Okay, it's simply, this is what works for me. So that's the premise.
Yes, usually when I meet a non-believer and we had a discussion, I ask them, do you regulate your body temperature consciously? Do you do anything related to your body, or is just the body adjusting itself to the environment? So the body has its own consciousness. It's not you doing it. And it's a consciousness which is embedded into the body and comes from a higher consciousness. And of course, they have no answer for that, but they keep repeating the same mantra,
And it's the body, it's the world, I mean when you think of all the fruits and vegetables available, all like I just can't take it for granted. I just can't. I mean, and there's some people that it's this nature that has made them into believers. And one person in particular is Francis Connors. And Francis Connor is, he and his team got the Nobel Prize for decoding the DNA strand. And he was a staunch atheist. And he said, decoding that DNA strand, the elegance of it, made him into this Bible thumping Christian, you know? So, there is, but you have to pay attention. I mean, he obviously was paying attention to what they were decoding, you just pay attention. And, I still am, even though I wrote the book, both books, I just can't, it's just delightful for me, just absolutely delightful. And wouldn't it be great if everybody felt this delight?
Yes. And from my perspective, to be very honest with you, being under the Catholic flag or Orthodox flag or Judaism flag doesn't make any sense anymore, because if we consider that we come and we gather all this information from a higher consciousness, then these labels don't mean anything. And if we also understand that we can reach that state of being of Christ consciousness through various paths. I mean, it's not one specific path, it's not the Christian path, it's not the Judaism path. It's a multitude of ways of reaching that point. Then all this fighting and labeling is useless.
Absolutely. In fact, in the divine language of coincidence, I have two appendices, and one is exactly about this, how the essence of, like, the major religions are basically the same. It's just different paths. Now, for me, Greek Orthodoxy is a tradition. It also shapes my tradition. And what I really like about this religion is, because since I was little, I participated in the rituals and all that. But the the philosophy of the religion is more like quantum mechanics, and I can relate to that. So, and there's more doable rules, okay, and but it's mainly it's my tradition.
Yes, and the Orthodoxy, I have to admit, did not have the destructive approach as the Catholicism did all over the world. So, and also Orthodoxy is much more constrained in countries like Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, so even Russia. So that's why, in a way, it stayed contained in certain areas.
Yes, and for some reason, I uh, am friends with a lot of priests, so I talk about these things. And where I thought they would say, "Oh, you're a heretic," it's like, no, that's true. So they're open, and like, for example, as far as rules go, like, you can get married and divorced 3 times, but you can't get married a fourth. And the thinking behind that is, well, because in Greece, there were a lot of forced marriages, at a very young age. So if that was the case and you were incompatible, then you are free to divorce. And then you marry the second person and it's not working out, you can divorce. But if you do it a third time, too bad. So, and also, like, oh, whatever happens behind closed doors is the business of the couple. There's just these outs, and so, but I think we'll see what happened really uh, when I uh, when I went to college and took my first philosophy class, ethics. It was like, I started to kind of pull away from the church. It's like, wait a second, you don't have to believe in Jesus to be a good person, you know? This is perfectly fine with me. And then I read this book by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk and a Christian scholar. And the title of the book was Living Buddha, Living Christ. And that pulled me back. That did it. So, it's a journey. It's a journey, but you have to be conscious, mindful of the journey. And so I've been rewarded for that.
Yes, I mean, all of us are being born into a specific religion, the religion of our family, of our clan, of our community. But
Or
later on in life,
atheism, or
yes,
atheism.
but later on in life, we are able to choose whatever path we want. And if the path is one of self-realization, I think that's the most important path for any human being.
Yes, yes. No, it's true.
Sophia, just to give more enticement to those listening to us, would you be able to mention one or two miracles from your book, The Divine Language of Coincidence, please?
Okay. Okay, so I do not um, give one miracle, like one miracle is not bigger than the other miracle. To me, a little miracle is a miracle. Okay. Okay. However, some could be more important. Okay. So I will give you two nice little quick events that brought about exactly what was needed for our wedding. Okay. So Frank and I decided that we were getting married on 4th of July, and we picked 4th of October, which is just 3 months. So a lot of the venues were taken, music bands. Uh, and I thought, oh, well, my friend's a wedding planner, she can create something beautiful in a warehouse, So we did get a call at one of the venues, the Mutter Museum, which is uh, physical oddities. It's a museum of physical oddities, but they have this beautiful uh, ballroom that is very expensive. So we thought, oh, well, I mean, what can we do? They called, they said there was a cancellation. And so I was thinking about this. And during that time, I am calling my friend, Anne. And a man answers that's not her husband. So I said, is Anne there? Well, this guy recognizes my voice and goes, Sophia, is that you? You called me. It's Jerry. It's Jerry. Look, I've got to go to a meeting and I'm late. Can I call you later? Now I know who Jerry is because I know his accent. He has a Greek accent, and I know him socially. Okay, so I said, Jerry, promise me you're going to call me. Promise. He goes, I promise. I said, but before you go, what is your telephone number? So it turns out that I had misdialed the last digit and gotten Jerry on the phone. Okay. So he calls me. There's a period of about 5 or 6 years that he owned the Barclay Hotel here in Philadelphia, which is this grand old hotel. And, we started talking. I told him about that I was getting married and that, we were trying to find this place and we got the Mutter Museum. He says, oh, you can use the ballroom. I'll give you the ballroom. And then he threw in the presidential suite for 2 nights, but I had to invite him and his girlfriend to our wedding. Okay. Now, how does that happen? Okay. So now the second one, and then you have to tell me which one you think is stranger. Okay. So I get a call from this woman who says, I found your driver's license. And how can I give it back to you? So it turns out that she only lived 2 blocks away, which makes sense, And I said, oh, thank you. I said, just put it through the mail slot. So she does. And because the driver's license was an Oregon driver's license, she wrote a little note about how much she loves Oregon. Fine. But it was not the end of the story. So now, fast forward, we're planning the wedding. She calls me up and says, I know this is going to sound a little strange to you, but I just found your ATM card. Now, now I don't lose cards, and I would go and use this one ATM where it would spit it out immediately. But this time I went to one that kept the card. And then after the transaction, it says, do you want another transaction? So I leave because I think I have my card. So the next person can come and wipe out my bank account. Well, it's her. Okay. And here she sees the card and it's my name on it. So we were both astounded. Okay. So she says, do you want me to put it through your mail slot? I said, no, we've got to meet. You and I have to meet. So she came over to my studio and I had this handmade soap from Oregon to give her to thank her. This lovely young woman. Turns out she's a concert violinist. And as a result of that meeting, she got her friend who plays the classic guitar to play my favorite concierto as I walk down the aisle, Concierto de Aranjuez.
Wow.
So, okay, now they're nice little, miracles, getting exactly what I need. Now, which one do you think is stranger?
The second for sure, because it's related to someone you didn't know, you never met. And I'm amazed that she didn't say, lady, do you need help with your cards? But
But the first one, I mean, to dial a number and dial the wrong number and get somebody that you actually know.
Sometimes people say thick fingers. This is their excuse when they dial the wrong number. And I understand that part. But the second one, to me, I think it's even stranger. And to give you an example, I just finished reading a book which was sent to me by another guest, Dr. Charnel. And she mentions that a lady was calling her, leaving messages saying, Dr. Charnel, I met you at this conference and we talked for a bit, but someone else pulled you out and we haven't had the chance to finish the conversation. I really want to talk to you. And Dr. Chanel looked at her schedule and said, on that date, I was somewhere else. I was not at that conference. But this lady will just not give up. And finally, Dr. Chanel calls her back and the lady tells the story, we had this discussion and Dr. Chanel tries to convince her that she was not there. And then the lady started giving her details. Were you dressed like this? Where do you look like that? Do you have this? And Dr. Chanel says, yes. And then she started to pay attention. She said, you know what? I think I was at that conference. She just realized that she bilocated somehow and she was with her family at that event on totally different location, while some people saw her at that conference because she had to meet with this particular lady at that particular moment.
Wow. Talking about bilocation, if you go onto my website, which is just my name, sophiademas.com, and click on my influencers page, it's 8 people that I know personally that I consider to be my mentors. And if you read just one blurb, it's about Abbess Ameliani. And it's a firsthand account of bilocation. It's just amazing, an amazing story. But what I wanted to point out about these 2 events, is the action I took. It would have been so easy with Jerry to say, oh, you don't have to call me back. I have nothing to talk to you about. This was just wild, And then when the woman, said, can I put it through the mail slot? say, yeah, thank you. It's wild, but yeah, just put it through it was bigger than me. This is what I wanted to emphasize, that it was bigger than me. Excuse me. So one miracle, I don't consider one miracle to be bigger than the other, but maybe one is more important. Okay. So threading through the first book is my relationship with my husband, who turns out to be this rager. This very mild mannered person, this wonderful person, would perceive something as an attack, and it all had to do with childhood issues. And then he would just explode in a rage. So I, I stayed because I saw how much he wanted the relationship. He found the perfect therapist. Well, that didn't work out that well because he continued. He found a men's group that dealt with raging men. He became the poster boy, but these things still had an effect. Finally, I had enough and I left because I can. And I moved in with a friend who was going through a divorce. And something happened where I decided I never wanted to lay eyes on this jerk ever again. Well, three incredible coincidences. I won't go into them. Absolutely incredible coincidences. The second one was so dramatic that it disarmed me enough to meet with him. And then the third one that was just absolutely, I'll tell you that one. Okay, now we've come together. Uh, he is, expressing that how much he wants this relationship, and I was planning to go to Maui, Hawaii, to be the matron of honor for my best friend for the third time. And I wanted to ask him, but I had trepidation because he had sabotaged these romantic getaways, but I decided to trust him. I made a conscious decision. So we're on our way to the airport, and I ran upstairs to get a book. And there were 7 books that I had started reading that I had not finished. So I just grabbed one. And we go in the cabin. I'm looking at it going, oh no, I wanted the novel. This is not a beach read, but what was it? It's by Dr. Deborah Green, Endless Energy. So I'm on the plane and I started reading the book, and it was about, she was describing auras, emotional auras, physical auras, and she's a kinesiologist, and she would do these energy clearings that sounded fantastic, like fantastic. And so I was reading and going back to the page, to the end of the book, to the citations, and telling Frank about what I was reading. And I'm really getting into this. And I'm going to the back of the book, and there's her name. And where does she live? In Maui. And the street address is the one where our rented condo is on, Kihei Road. So now, what do you do when that happens? Okay, now that I can be going 360 degrees, but I'm heading to Maui. Okay, and she's on the same road. Well, the layover, I call her up, and I told her what had just happened, and I asked if she could do a reading on Frank and myself. So yes, she gave me a couple times. I said, I have to ask him because this might be too woo for Frank. And I said, Frank, look, here she's in Maui on Kihei wrote, if you agree to a clearing, it'll be your Christmas present. And he goes, well, I guess it's meant to be. Now that's strange lingo for coming from him. Well, we did. We went and we had the clearing. Okay, that was in 2009. He has not had one anger episode since. And I don't know, was it because I decided to trust him? Was it because of this energy clearing, or both? But she was fantastic. And she has written the foreword to my second book.
Wow.
So that's how things go, you know? So now, yes, so I would say that the miracle of having my marriage saved is more important. It's not bigger, but for me, it's more important.
Yes, and I consider it a miracle, and also proves another point that there are alternatives way of healing that are much more important and much more efficient than medication. And in fact, I'm working on an initiative right now, turning the content of my interviews with so many guests, 200 plus, into books. And one of them is alternatives ways of healing. And we are talking about energy clearing, sound clearing, sound therapy, anything that is called alternative and not allopathic, and can help people a lot. And Frank, and your the story you just mentioned, thank you for that. It's a proven concept.
It is, and again now in all three of these coincidences, again, I took action. You know, I could have just gone, oh my God, she lives in Maui. How about that? But it was just, like, you must be kidding, you know? So what happens with these events, and all of this is communicated through your intuition. So when you get exactly what you need and you say thank you, then you trust your intuition more. So it's this kind of a snowball effect of, you trust it more, you pay more attention, you have more faith, and I do believe that God, divine intelligence, truly wants us to be happy and find our true purpose, and helps us along. And you don't have to believe it, you know, but for me, there's no trace of doubt.
Yes, and to be honest with you, after listening to so many guests and their experiences, nothing amazes me anymore. I take everything so naturally that they told me that I have a poker face and I should start playing poker, because I don't say wow, I don't say incredible, or no. I mean, I just take it everything in and like a normal thing, because I know the universe and God and the cosmic consciousness is amazing, and it's playing with us in a nice way if we want to play along.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you don't worry if it's going to happen or not. You know, it's just it's amazing. And now that that there's this new field, this after death communication, that scientists are paying attention to all of a sudden. So that's going to be interesting to see, because this group, the Scientific and Medical Network, their focus was on synchronicity. Okay. But now we're going into after death communication. So I feel like I was just at the right place at the right time, and then to have these scientists be interested.
Yes, and Sophia, you mentioned your list of influencers. I went through that list. I read the names and their specialties, and it's interesting. Half of them are people of faith and half scientists. Very interesting
Oh, yeah,
selection.
that's a good observation. Yeah. Yeah, it's I feel extremely fortunate.
Yeah. Do you have any daily rituals that help you, remain attuned to recognizing and embracing coincidences and miracles in your life?
Um, no, because like you said, see now I get amazed when they happen. I'm amazed, But again, yes, it's natural. It's absolutely natural. But I do say, my husband and I say three prayers in the morning, every morning together, and they're in the book. And one that I'd like to emphasize is many, many years ago, because Greek is my first language. Um, I it just dawned on me that the word forgiveness is not in the Lord's Prayer in Greek, the original Greek, because it was written down in Greek originally. And that fascinated me. So I really looked at the prayer line by line. And I can't tell you how much has been lost in translation in English. So I went back and retranslated it, and I got the blessing of Father Dimitrios Kostandelos, who's one of my mentors, who's no longer with us. And so I got it. He was a world class theologian and Greek scholar, and got his blessing. And it is so interesting that the nuances, like just the first line. So where it's in English is Our Father who art in heaven, and I retranslated it to Our Creator who resides in sound, light, and vibration. And when I told him, when I told him how I had translated it, and I said to him, I don't know what you're gonna think about the first line. I said, because you're gonna think I'm a heretic. And when I said it, he says, no, that's the truth. He said, because in Greek, heaven is plural. So it's all realms, sound, light, and vibration. So it's so these I feel that again, it's part of my tradition. Um, so it sets the mood for the day. And again, I need to really emphasize these are not to convince someone. I believe that the Lord's Prayer can be said by any person in any religion. In fact, that's what Jesus said to his disciples when they said, how do we pray? What are we supposed to say? And he gave them the prayer, which is derived from a Jewish prayer. So that kind of sets the tone. And then I just find myself asking for what I want and then saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Perfect. So no cold showers in the morning. And
No, I'm not into suffering.
and I agree that the scriptures and the teachings were not translated properly, or they were mistranslated. And what saddens me is the fact that the church doesn't want to rectify this mistake. They keep running with the same old and alter translations, and I think more people will come to the table and to Yeshua's teachings if the meaning of them will be properly explained.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I allowed to guide me
Yes.
is this thing that's just bigger than me.
Yes. Sophia, are you working on any other projects these days? Anything that keeps you awake at night or interested?
Well, I'm currently working part-time as so my employer is the Salvation Army. And So I had no idea how much, good the Salvation Army does. But there's a residence for ex-trafficked women who want to turn the page, turn their life around. So, which involves a lot of trauma, lots of trauma. And I'm the in-house counselor. So, and if I can help, one person, I'm content. Some people don't want to lift a finger until they hit rock bottom. But it's very satisfying work. And people were asking me if I was going to write another book, and I'd say no, because those are all my stories. I'm done. I'm done. But on Thanksgiving, I woke up with this title in my head. So I'm entertaining this. We're in that stage right now. And the title was Hypocrisy, Jesus's biggest pet peeve. And I wanted to write about the hypocrisy within evangelicals, and religions, other religions too, the Supreme Court, and politicians. So that's swimming up here. So we'll see.
And are you going to use a pen name just in case you want to be safe?
No pen name.
Sophia, we are at the end of this lovely discussion. Any final words?
No, just trust. Just trust that the universe has your back.
Yes. And I will add trust, love, and be grateful for everything else, and things will happen.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to my viewers. Please share it, leave a comment, visit spiritualinspired.ca, and until next time, love and gratitude.